Hello to everyone on Facebook and welcome to RTO Doctors 30 Days, 30 Tips second series. And tonight it's going to be a very brief tip, only because I just want to remind people that you never know who is going to be visiting your RTO, and you never know who's going to be in your classroom at any particular time or who they know. The reason for that particular tip is because very recently some friends of mine did a course in a RTO in Perth where I personally had highly recommended this particular provider as being one of the leading providers in this particular field. And the person subsequently enrolled in the course, and they were horrified at the experience that they received. And what came back to me in terms of feedback was that this person had been indirectly discriminated against in a range of ways, and not only that, but they were not offered a language literacy numeracy assessment pre-enrolment. They felt that they had been intentionally picked on and that their learning journey had been made all the more difficult because the trainer and assessor didn't necessarily want that person to achieve competency in the course. Now, what was most startling about this was the more that I discussed this situation with my friend, I later learned that the trainer and assessor was actually the CEO of the company. And so I started thinking to myself that perhaps people don't really pay attention to their thoughts and actions and how they can be perceived by others. Once upon a time, I wrote a blog post on LinkedIn about the power and paradox of perception, and I speak a lot about perception because it can impact a lot in not just what we do in terms of regulation and compliance, but in terms of training and assessment, and in terms of how we operate our RTO and how we market our RTO, how we run our classes. Every area of our RTO is exposed to perception. And so I guess the tip for that particular scenario was that maybe or maybe not, if you give the CEO the benefit of the doubt, they didn't realise that the behaviour that they were engaging in was actually discriminatory, and that the student at the time felt completely discriminated against. What is certain is that nobody else in the class was being asked to respond to questions, and nobody else in the class was being ridiculed when they got the question wrong. Other people were actually facilitated in terms of completing the correct responses, whereas this person had to go out of their way to find the correct response. Even though they were struggling, they received no support. They struggled with language, they struggled with understanding some of the concepts, and the trainer and assessor involved did not make the work any easier. So it made me think about, really, you never know who is in your class, and you never know who that person knows. And so in a regulatory environment that is as complex and stringent as it is today in the vet sector, it startles me that people would behave in this manner so openly. Another example, which is not to do with discrimination, but just wanting to do the right thing but exposing yourself unnecessarily. So I know, for example, that there are several RTOs out there at the moment who take photographs of their students proudly presenting their certificates and their testaments and graduation photos and so forth. But what people don't realise is that because social media and websites are openly available to be scrutinised by the regulator now, if there's anything wrong with that statement of attainment or certificate testament that the student's holding up proudly, then you're already exposing yourself to an audit that was probably unnecessary but brought forward because somebody didn't pay attention to the compliance requirements of the photo and unwittingly has exposed you through promoting the graduation and completion of a student. So likewise, when you're doing online training, for example, if you have a student who enrolls, you don't know whether that student is a regulator or someone related to a regulator. You don't know who people know. And I guess in this day and age of regulation in the vet sector, it's really important to keep that in mind, that you just don't know what you don't know. And with people out there that can be enrolling in your courses, looking at your marketing materials, you don't know who it is, who's in your class anymore, who with online training, you don't know who's actually enrolling in your courses anymore. You don't know the names of all of the auditors out there. You could be unwittingly enrolling a regulator into your courses without even realising, exposing yourself to unnecessary non-compliance. In an environment where, if we go back to when ASQA, for example, first came into existence, they made a very public statement that it was their intention to close down as many RTOs as possible. So just bear that in mind as you go about your day-to-day operations as an RTO, no matter what role you play, whether you're the person at reception and picking up the phone, whether you're the administrator completing the enrolment documentation, whether you're the marketing person looking after the website and the course brochures, whether you're the trainer and assessor, whether you're the CEO who is networking, whether you're the CEO that's actually taking the class. Just remember that you don't know who's who and you never know when Big Brother is watching. So take that tip tonight with a grain of salt, and hopefully it will be helpful for you to implement into your organisations. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow evening, Sunday, for another 30 Days, 30 Tips. Thanks very much, and bye for now.